come here tonight to hear me talk about what it was like walking the Appalachian Trail. I haven't done it yet, so haven't got a lot to tell you about what it was like, but I can tell you quite a lot about why I'm doing it and what I think it's going to be like. So the reason I'm here to talk to you tonight is about my journey, my personal story. You might relate to parts of it, you might know people who've suffered similarly, but I think it's important, after many years of feeling a lot of shame about it, I feel it's important to talk about something that's an invisible illness, and it sounds so boring when you say it, chronic pain. So lame, so boring, there's nothing flashy, no one can even really tell you what you've got, why you're feeling it, but believe you me, it destroys lives, and because it's got no name that you can put on a badge or a poster, unfortunately, it's not very well known, but lots of people are suffering silently. So my themes really are hope, overcoming adversity, invisible illness, and shame, and why none of us should be ashamed about anything that we might be going through. It definitely is better to reach out and tell somebody what's going on. So, I am walking the Appalachian Trail. Does anyone know anything? Has anyone walked the Appalachian Trail in here? Okay, good. I can make some stuff up. The Appalachian Trail goes from, well, actually, most people go from down here in Georgia all the way up to Maine. It's in America, in case you weren't too sure. And it's 2,200 miles, and it's the longest footpath-only route in the world. The PCT, the film Wild that Reese Witherspoon was in, that's on the other side of America. It's a bit longer, but it crosses roads, it goes alongside roads. It doesn't make it any less difficult, but this is off-piste, if you like. Made famous by Bill Bryson originally with his book, A Walk in the Woods, which is very funny, and if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend it to you. If anyone knows Bill Bryson, hook me up, okay? Please, thanks. So I'm not walking NOBO. NOBO is northbound this way. I'm going SOBO, southbound, from Maine downwards, and it's much harder. And, I'm sorry, Lucy, I did tell her this earlier, more people have successfully summited Everest than have successfully walked southbound down the Appalachian Trail. And I will get more information to you about the trail and what it entails after I've talked you through where I come from to get there. I was a normal kid. I was born slightly weird. Not mentally, then maybe that's a bit later that comes, but my feet were curled up like little balls when I was born. When I came bursting into the light from Mum, thanks Mum, she's in here somewhere, my feet had been curled up under my bottom as a fetus, and they didn't quite work. So if I was to walk up and down the stage now, you could see they're a little bit pigeon-toed. I'm putting it on a bit, to be honest. They're a bit better now. But they were curled right in, and I was told, and I have the casts at home, I was trying to get them as a prop to show you, but I don't have them with me, that I had to wear casts on my feet when I was a baby for the first year to try and straighten out how my feet were, because apparently it would have problems in later life. And as a toddler, I clearly remember being lifted onto these long tables with specialists sitting all around and asked to walk up and down the table so they could look at my legs and my feet and to see if they were kind of normal. And they were, and I was given clean bill of health, off you go, toddler, go out into the world. And I did, and everything was great. And I was sporty at school, loved my cross-country running, 1,500-metre races, loved life a lot, probably a bit too much. Loved my teenage years, loved my university years. I rode sliding seat for my university. And I'm Cornish, as is Kris, who spoke first. And in Cornwall we have something called gigs, which are these hefty wooden rowing boats, and we race from cove to cove. And I was a stroke rower for my gig team, which is a prestigious place for the first team. And I was doing okay, but in my teens I'd also had a little bit of a wobble. Things weren't working quite right, got a few twinges in my butt and my back. So my uncle kindly sent me to a specialist in London. Can you imagine a 14-year-old, bit chubby, that kind of prepubescent, just kind of feel like this all the time, even though on the outside you're like, yeah, I've got this, everything's cool, and you're just dying inside. So I had to go to this surgery place in Harley Street, I think it was, where I had to strip off to these like kind of grey Marks and Spencer's pants with my little thick thighs rubbing together on a treadmill with all these specialists recording me from behind. You can imagine, videoing it, projecting it, so that they could see my gait, how my hips move, my knees, my feet. And my mum waited outside while the specialist spoke to me, and he sat me down and said, I don't think he was very good at relating to young people, to be honest with you, because he said, looked at the charts and then went, well, if you don't get your feet broken and reset, young lady, you'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 40. And I went, oh, okay. Thinking, if this was important, I think my mum would be here. And because she wasn't, I thought, he'll probably tell my mum that. So I left and went, okay, I'll get on that. Sure, thanks. And I left, and Mum said, everything okay? And I was like, yeah, great, everything's fine, we'll just crack on. And I didn't know until later, when I was suicidal and wanting to end my life because I couldn't take another day of chronic pain, talking to Mum and saying, maybe we should have listened back then. And she said, what? I said, the guy who said I needed my feet broken and reset. She said, I had no idea. So he'd never told her, and the paperwork had never been received. Anyhow, back to my 20s, doing all the good stuff you do when you're 20, dancing too much all night, etc. Rowing, I was going to row in the World Championships in the Scilly Isles down in Cornwall, and the pain started to get worse and worse and worse. And it started with a bad back, and how freaking boring is a bad back? Every bastard's got a bad back. And even at 20, it's boring. My auntie had a bad back. Every time we had Christmas dinner, oh yeah, it's my back. I'm like, I'm not being fucking auntie. I'm not going to moan about my back all the time. So I didn't want to go to the doctor. And I don't know about you guys, but for me and my parents, going to the doctor was something that, unless your leg is dropped off, Monty Python with the guy in the armour, and they just cut his legs and his arms off, and he's like, it's just a flesh wound. That's basically what you've got to be like before you go to the doctor in our family. So I had my legs and my arms, so I didn't go. But it started getting really bad. I started to fall out with my boyfriend quite a lot. He didn't really understand why. Sex was painful because I didn't want to lie down in any particular place, and walking on a Sunday afternoon was painful, and walking around the supermarket was painful. So we fell out a bit. He was kind of a knob anyway, but that didn't help things. Sorry, TMI. Anyway, I eventually went to the doctor, to cut the long story short, and this is where kind of you look back at that moment where it's like, I didn't go to the doctor and everything was probably all right, and then you go to the doctor and you look back and you think, that's the moment that the story really began, the tragedy of someone with something unidentifiable colliding with a system that is based purely on the empirical, the verifiable, and what might be in the manual. So if you don't fit into what's in the manual, then where do you go and what do you become? Well, you get filled full of pills for a start. So my back hurts. This is the first trip to the doctor. Oh, okay, touch toes. Ow. Oh, yeah, okay. Let me have a feel around. Can't find anything wrong. Take some ibuprofen, come back in 6 months. Okay, sure, no problem. And I was like, golden retriever puppy is kind of my character. I'm like, okay, yes, I'll take it. Yeah, lovely. No way, do all the diligent things, don't get any better. Get worse and worse and worse. And in the end, we're talking 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line of being ashamed to go back to the doctor to say it hadn't worked, because that means in some way you're insulting the doctor because they've given you some advice and it hasn't worked. Probably thinking a bit too much about that, wasn't I? And it became cocodamol and naproxen and amitriptyline and gabapentin and pregabalin and all of these other different drugs you get given because they don't really know what's wrong, but they need to do something. And the amitriptyline, eventually they gave it to me in a dropper dose because I couldn't take the pill. And I'm a teacher. I love my job. I love teaching so much. I love the humour, the quick fire banter with the kids. And I couldn't speak. My mouth dried up. I couldn't drive properly. I couldn't focus. So I gave that back. And then it was the other pills. Gave them back. Had MRIs. Can't see anything wrong. You sure it's not in your head? No, it's not in my head. The whole right side of my body is on fire and I can't sleep and I can't walk. So just to give you a little picture of what it's like, it's the tragedy of being in pain, so much pain. I tried to describe it to my therapist once, and I said it was like, it's only over the right-hand side of my body, up to the fingertips, down to the toes, but mostly centered around my face, jaw, and this side of my body. So imagine, this is quite graphic, but you get the idea. A body's been in a river for a while, and it's swollen up. that bloated kind of cop show thing you get. And it's pulled out of the river, and then that body's laying over an electric fence that sends a current through it every 5 minutes. And that's the right-hand side of my body, but the outside doesn't look any different. You couldn't tell that's going on inside, but inside it's stretching my skin, it's causing me untold agony, but the doctor says, it's in your head, you're fine. So that's very tricky. And in the end, they didn't know what to do with me. So after avoiding friends' birthday parties, losing a social circle, pretending I was okay because I was too ashamed to say I'm in pain because I don't know what to say that goes along with that. Where? In your back. Oh yeah, have you tried a pillow for when you sit in the office? Yeah, thank you, I'll do that. Really, you just don't know what to say, so you stop talking. And once you stop talking, everything goes wrong. You just disappear into your own head. So I was getting steadily more and more depressed, and the only people I was talking to were my parents, my sister, and I was saying things like, I can't go on, I need to die. I can't go on, I can't live this life anymore. If down that kind of telescope of my future is just more pain, and no one can see it, no one gets it. So the doctor said, pain clinic. And I said, woohoo! Wow, that sounds like somewhere that people know what they're doing about pain. Send me to the pain clinic. I was so excited to go to the pain clinic. I was like, why have I been denied the pain clinic for 5 years? I get to the pain clinic. It's like the knacker's yard where they send the old horses to be made into cat food. Honestly, I was so disappointed. So I rock up all like, well, not like that, more like this. Yay, fix me! And they sat me in an office and they listened to my story and they said, okay, Gail, here's the thing. And I was like, hit me. And they said, you need to give up hope. It's not positive for you. You need to accept your prognosis, which is bleak. You need to take the pills, stop refusing them. If they mean you can't drive and that you can't speak and you have a dry mouth and hallucinations and insomnia, that's the price you pay to get rid of the pain that you keep telling us about. We'll inject you in the spine. You can have 6 courses of acupuncture with us, and that's it. Apply for a disability badge for your car, except you will give up your job and come and join our therapy group because your inability to accept your diagnosis is making you worse. And I said, oh, fuck you. That's basically what I said. No, in my head I said that. At the time I wasn't brave enough. I was in too much of a state. So I said, okay, give me all the pills. Took them away. Sat on it for a bit. A few weeks. 6 weeks later, my next appointment. I went along with all the pills and I pushed them across the table, and I may have gently sworn, but in a very supportive, professional way. And thank you for your pills. I appreciate your expertise. I don't believe you. Something's gone wrong. And because something's gone wrong, I'm going to find a way to put it right. And if you guys can't be bothered to figure out what's gone wrong, then this is rubbish. This stuff is just to turn off my senses so I can't feel what's happening. It's my body, I'm going to fix it. And they went, well, it's punchy, but okay, we'll discharge you. So that was it, and I went on my own journey of finding a solution to chronic pain, which was pretty epic. And well, just some of the things I did were fasting in the Thai jungle for 11 days, twice, no food at all, shamanic meditation, transcendental breathing remedies that took me to like back to source, very trippy, drugs, illegal and otherwise, craniosacral therapy, everything, swimming, Pilates, meditation, everything you can imagine. And lots of it helped here and there, but nothing ever really truly helped. And all the time I was still struggling, but telling my friends I was fine. You know, it's fine, I'm going to find a cure. I'd love to tell you that all of those things worked, but actually they didn't in the end. But I was well enough to accept a job to Italy. This is going in the right direction, I promise you. And in Italy, I arrived on my own at the top of a mountain near Lake Como, where I got this amazing job, seconded to the European Commission, no Brexit references here, as a representative of British teaching from the UK government. And within 3 weeks of this wonderful job out there on my own, with no infrastructure, no healthcare, no classes, no family, no friends, I was suicidal. And I remember sitting on the edge of the balcony of my beautiful apartment in the Italian Alps, and I sat on the edge of the decking, and I thought, I've got such a good job, I've got such a great family, I've got everything in the world going for me, and I can't get rid of this pain. I've tried to make friends with it, I've tried to solve it, I've tried the medical route, I've tried the alternative routes. I'm a functioning member of society. I pay my taxes, I look after people, I pick up litter in the street that's not mine, I love my friends, I love my community, and no one cares. I'm just slipping down the drain into nowhere, and nobody can stop it. So I'm gonna die because I'm a burden on my family and I can't take another day of this pain. And then, as I sat there thinking, well, it's all very well and good to want to do that, but how the hell does this stuff, how does this work? What do I do now? Because I know I don't want to be alive, but I started flicking through my bag, decided to maybe get some notepaper out to write a letter, I think, and I found on a scrap of paper a phone number that my chiropractor had given me from Cornwall. And he said, if you go to Italy, you get into trouble, call this number. And it's the number of a chiropractor on Lake Como. So I left a very embarrassing Italian crying message at 3 a.m. on a stranger's voicemail. And my Italian was poor after 3 weeks, but they got the gist between the snivels and the wailing. And they got a message the next day to come in. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but the person I'd called is called J.P. Meerseman, and he's a very famous Belgian medical specialist. And he was, at the time, AC Milan Football Club, part of their future lab. So he treated Beckham, he treated lots of famous footballers and other sports people. Kim Clijsters had flown over from the States to get herself fixed by him. And I just rocked up like a deranged, depressive Cornish bird, like, right on, I'm in a terrible state. And he was very serious and got me on the couch and did all this stuff to me, click, crack, crack, cotton wool buds in my mouth, walk with that in, walk with it without. And I was like, okay, like hadn't slept for days, terrible mess. And he sat me down and he said, I could correct your posture every day for the rest of your life, or every week for €150 for 10 minutes. And you'd be all right for a day or two, and then you'd be terrible again. And this is the cycle of what had happened to me. I went to the chiropractor, I went to the osteopath, and I was okay when they fixed me for a day or two. And he said, and then you will become in unspeakable agony again, unless you get realigned. And I said, yes, I know, why? And he said, well, it's very simple, and we can fix you. And I was like, what? How is it simple? I've known you for 15 minutes. And he said, your jaw is completely ruined. Your teeth don't match properly, and every time you speak, chew, yawn, talk after you've had an alignment treatment, your jaw opening wrongly has misaligned your entire body and twisted yourself out of shape. There are times that my muscles were pulling my hip bones almost out of their sockets, so I couldn't use my legs because my body had twisted around so far. And he said, absolutely, because this doesn't meet, none of this that hangs from it will work. So that was the beginning of the cure, and they gave me special things to wear in my mouth for 6 months to bring my jaw forward. Very embarrassing when you're trying to teach lots of very intelligent, posh European Commission school kids, and you've got braces and a big thing in your mouth. Let's learn about history. It was pretty humbling, but they were all very nice because loads of them had braces too. And then I had braces and I had to realign my whole head, and it worked. It freaking worked. I couldn't believe it. I remember him saying, and it would be very expensive, and me thinking like, A, that sounds like total bullshit that it's my jaw. B, last night I was going to die. So bullshit or death, I'm going to go with bullshit. And luckily bullshit absolutely worked, and here I stand today, the best that I've ever been, fit as a fiddle. And it's a long journey to get here because I had lots of issues with how I've been holding myself with all my years of pain. So when I was really, really sick, when I was 20, I read Bill Bryson's book and I loved it. And when I was really, really sick, I read Bill Bryson's book again and again and again, because this trail is not there anymore. Who took my trail? This trail...
We see it.
Thank you. See it in your mind's eye, people, your mind's eye. That indelible impression of the trail was what stayed with me all those years, even though I couldn't see it. No, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do fuck all. Now I run trail races, but I could do nothing. I was crippled to fuck. But in my head, and when I read Bill Bryson's book, I could walk. I was in his backpack with him. I was seeing the things he was describing. I was in nature, and I was so happy. So now I'm well, I'm taking that goddamn walk, and I'm going to do it. I don't know that I can make it all the way because I still suffer with pain because my body's quite ruined from what it went through. But I'm going to try, and I'm going to invite people to come and walk parts of it with me and tell their stories of overcoming adversity when they were too ashamed to speak about what was going on with them because they didn't think people would listen, or there was no name for what they were struggling with. Couldn't identify with anybody. So that's my mission. So, yeah, I hope I make it. So the trail, I'm going to try and get it, but can you bear with me just a second? No.
Please see it.
Cannot. Okay, so it's 14 states. It will take me 5 months approximately of walking approximately 25 miles a day. There are bears. I have to carry ultralight kit because my body, even though I'm strong, are you going to get me the map? No, back brain. I have to get special, thank you buddy, I have to get special ultralight kit. There are bears. Did I say that? I'm really freaking out about the bears. You can't get bear canisters in this country. I need these special things. You have to stuff all your stuff inside of and screw the lid on the top. So apparently, when you're in your... Right on. That's alright, it's okay, we're close, it's okay. You have got the password, it's amazing. I got a whole team. Get the map team. Role play. Thank you, we got it, yes, brilliant, okay, woo! So I'm starting southbound. Now I'd love, only one in four people who ever do the trail are women, by the way. So it's a hugely male-dominated trail, and I think more of us women need to go out there and put that right. People my age don't tend to do it either. And so most of the people who start down here, so maybe like 2,500 people try and start down here all at the same time of the year. So within about 2 weeks, they're all vomiting with norovirus and kind of stumbling over each other, and it's a shit show, sorry. More than half have gone by this time. So you've got about 1,500 about there. And then maybe 800 finish going this way compared to maybe 4,000 tried to start last year here and it halved to 2,000 there. 450 started here going that way. And so far only 76 have said they'd finished last year going southbound because it's loads harder. You start with the highest elevation that you have to climb before your legs are trail ready. And then you have to go straight into the 100-mile wilderness where there are no resupply points at all. So you have to carry everything you need. There's no way out, really. There's logging roads, but they're a long way away. Help is a long way away. And then it's all, jolly good fun most of the way down. But it's going to take a long time. And it ties in for me with hope. I hope I can achieve it. I hope I can get through it. I have to deal with the fact that I'm not in pain as much as I used to be. I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you, who I am. Now I'm not fighting pain. That's very strange. And I found that illness takes you away from yourself for a little while, and then you come back to who you were before. Flu, chickenpox, whatever. Chronic illness takes you away from yourself, and you don't come back. You just get further and further away, and you keep thinking you're going to come back to who you were, but you never do. And who you really were goes somewhere else, and like another place, and you revisit shadows of yourself, but you never really get back to who you were because the pain has taken you too far away, or any chronic condition that you suffer for a long time removes you from yourself and the way you were and the way your life was. And because I've fought pain for 15 years silently for most of the time, I've got friends in the audience here who might have no idea what I went through. Only my family really knew, and really knew that I was going to die. So I think I need to rediscover who I am, and I think walking a really long way, the slowest way that I can move, and just needing to put food in my mouth and one foot in front of the other, and seeing who I am. Now I'm not fighting pain, and seeing how I can help other people who are suffering and who need hope. Because if I'd given up hope, or if I'd listened to the doctors and people saying no at any point along that journey, I wouldn't be here today. Resilience, hope, and just believing there's a way through and not being ashamed. So whatever you might be going through, whatever you might face, don't be ashamed, because what I've discovered is we're all in this together, and everyone, if they find out what's going on, just wants to give you a hand. So if you want to come and walk the Appalachian Trail with me, it's open to everyone. Come, walk, tell your story, fly into New York on a cheap flight, hop over and join me, see some bears, go back home, bring me a Mars bar. You can find find me here and follow the journey. And I mean that sincerely. If you want to come and walk and talk and share your story, or just walk, please come along with me. And thank you so much for listening to my story.